You like to imagine a medieval castle as warm, glowing with firelight, feasts and banners fluttering in the crisp winter air. Reality? It's a giant refrigerator. Stone walls don't hold heat, they suck it away. And when winter sets in, every hall, every chamber, every drafty stairwell becomes a trap for the cold. It's the middle of the night. You roll over on your straw mattress, wrapped in scratchy wool blankets, and your breath fogs in the air. The air inside your room is colder than the air outside your modern fridge, and this is supposed to be the Lord's chamber. Waking up cold, you open your eyes to frost glistening on the inside of your narrow window slit. Ice rims the wooden shutters. The straw beneath you is damp from condensation. It smells of mold and mice. You pull your cloak tighter, but the chill gnaws your bones. Your lips are cracked, your nose drips, and you cough into your sleeve, sending up a puff of mist. This is the start of your day. Not with coffee, not with toast, but with shivering. Fireplaces that fail. Yes, castles had fireplaces. No, they didn't help much. Your chamber has one small hearth, built into the stone wall. You burned the last of last night's logs hours ago. Now it's just grey ash, radiating nothing. Even when lit, the fire doesn't heat the room. Most of the warmth flies straight up the chimney, leaving smoke to creep back into the hall. Your eyes sting. Your clothes reek of smoke. If you're lucky, you warm your hands for a few minutes before it all vanishes again. You think of central heating back home and laugh, except your lips are too frozen to move. The drafts. Castles weren't sealed like modern houses. Every arrow slit, every crack between stone blocks, every poorly fitted wooden shutter leaks air. The wind moans through the gaps like a ghost. Your blanket flaps. Your candle sputters. You shove a rag into the window slit. It does nothing. The cold still slides across the floor like an enemy army. The clothes you sleep in. You don't undress at night. That's suicide. You sleep in your underclothes, your tunic, your woolen hose, and a cloak thrown over all of it. If you own fur, you wear it. If not, you freeze. Your shoes sit by the hearth, stiff with frost, impossible to bend. You know you'll have to jam your feet into them anyway. Toes numb, leather biting into skin. And yes, the lice in your seams are awake too. They're the only ones enjoying themselves this winter. This is what it was like to wake up in a medieval castle. Cold, smoky, itchy, miserable. If you enjoy these slow survival stories, you can subscribe only if you like them. It helps me make more, and tell me, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it for you? Why castles were cold by design. Castles weren't built for comfort, they were fortresses. Thick walls stopped arrows, not wind. Tall towers made defense easier, not heating. High ceilings impressed guests but left fireplaces useless. Even the grandest great hall was an icebox, lit by torches, warmed by a fire so big it smoked everyone out. For peasants huddled in the outer wards, there was no fire at all, just straw, cloaks and prayer. Starting the day, you shuffle out of bed, joints stiff, and stumble down the corridor. The stone floor bites your bare feet. Your breath clouds in the air as you walk past tapestries stiff with frost. Servants scurry, arms full of logs, faces pale. You pass into the great hall, a cavern of shadows. The fire in the center smoulders, sending more smoke than warmth. Lords and ladies sit near it, cloaks wrapped, teeth chattering. You sit too. Your backside warms slightly, your face still frozen, your back still cold. You spin like a roast on a spit, chasing comfort you'll never catch. The smell of cold. You don't think cold has a smell until you live in it. It smells of damp stone, mouldy straw, smoke that clings to wool. It smells of unwashed bodies layered in cloaks for weeks, fleas hopping in seams. You cough. Everyone coughs. The air is thick, not with heat, but with the rot of winter. Sardonic reflection. Why you wouldn't survive. You complain when your thermostat dips below 68 Fef. In a medieval castle, you'd never see 68 Fef again until spring. You'd moan about drafts. You'd scream about the lice. You'd curse the smoke in your eyes. And by the end of your first night, you'd be begging for a holiday inn. But the medieval lord, he endured. He survived. He froze, but he lived. You wouldn't. A morning of cold. Your day begins not with food, not with prayer, but with shivering. You rise from your frozen bed, cough into the smoky air, and trudge toward another day in a stone fortress that keeps out arrows, but lets in every ounce of winter. The castle is your home, but it's also your prison, and winter is your jailer. Breakfast in the castle. You imagine medieval breakfasts as feasts. Steaming bread, roasted meats, maybe a goblet of spiced wine. Reality, your first meal is yesterday's bread, frozen hard enough to chip a tooth, and a mug of ale turned slushy overnight. You sit at a wooden table in the great hall. The torchlight flickers on frosty stone walls. A servant slaps down a hunk of rye bread so dense it feels like a weapon. You try to bite, and the crust nearly cracks your molars. This is survival food, not meant to be enjoyed, only endured. Trying to eat. You gnaw at the bread. It tastes of mould and smoke, with a grit of bran and maybe sawdust. You wash it down with ale, lukewarm and sour, because the water is worse, full of filth, sure to give you dysentery. Your jaw aches. Your stomach growls, but you keep chewing, because there is nothing else. At the Lord's table there is meat, butter, honey. You are not invited there. You sit with the servants, gnawing like a dog. The frozen kitchen. The kitchen should be warm, right? There are fires, stews, pots bubbling. But even here, the cold creeps in. The fire heats only the cook's hands. The rest of the room is smoke, grease and chill. The cauldrons sweat steam, filling the air with greasy fog. The floor is slick with spilled broth. Servants cough as they stir pots of cabbage and barley, sneezing into the food because washing hands is unthinkable in winter. You lean over the pot, trying to warm your face in the steam. It smells of turnips boiled too long, of mutton grease, of smoke-soaked wood. Meals by class, lords and ladies. They sit near the hearth with roasted meats, buttered bread, mulled wine and spices imported at impossible cost. The fire blazes behind them, their silver goblets catching the glow. Servants and guards. Porridge if you're lucky, a slice of bread, weak ale, and maybe a chunk of tough salted pork once a week. Peasants in the outer ward. Stale crusts, boiled weeds, thin broth scraped from the bottom of the pot. If they're lucky, the castle fed many mouths, but warmth and food flowed uphill, always to the lord first. You would be at the bottom of the bowl scraping. Survival POV. Dinner in the hall. It's evening. The great hall is smoky, loud and cold. Torches spit wax and flame. Servants stagger under trays of meat for the lord's table. The smell makes your stomach clench, but your bowl holds only pottage. Watery stew with turnips, beans and whatever scraps were thrown in. You pick out a piece of gristle and chew it anyway. You glance at the lord's table. Haunches of venison, roasted goose, flagons of wine. You look back at your bowl, grey with grease. You keep eating, because survival doesn't let you be picky. The winter diet. Winter made food worse. No fresh vegetables, no fruit, just salted meat, dried peas, black rye, and whatever root vegetables hadn't rotted in the cellar. Salt pork was grey and slimy, cheese was hard and stinking, ale was flat. By February, scurvy gnawed at gums. By March, bellies swelled with malnutrition. By April, you prayed the fields would green again. If you lived that long. Sardonic reflection. Your modern breakfast. You complain when your latte isn't foamy enough. Here, your latte is lukewarm ale with a crust floating in it. You post online when your toast burns. Here, your toast breaks your teeth. You wouldn't survive a week of this. You'd beg for oatmeal. You'd weep for coffee, and no one would care. The smell of eating together. Imagine it. 100 bodies crammed into a hall, eating cabbage, beans, pork fat and stale bread. The air thick with grease, sweat, wood smoke and farts. You try to swallow. You gag a little, but you keep chewing, because everyone else is too busy to notice. Feast days? Yes, there were feast days with meat, ale and music. Yes, the lord threw scraps to the servants, but those were rare, and the meat was usually fatty, greasy and cold by the time it reached you. Besides, feast days were colder, the hall's big doors thrown open to show off wealth, wind blowing across your bowl. You think a feast is fun, but in a medieval castle winter, it's just another drafty dinner in disguise. Survival POV. The night meal. You sit with your bowl of pottage, your breath clouding in the air. Your hands are numb even as you lift the spoon. The broth is warm but not enough. You chew bread until your jaw aches. You drink ale until you burp sour. You wipe your nose on your sleeve, and you shiver the whole time. The kitchen fires die. By night's end, the cooks let the fires burn low. Wood is scarce. Smoke drifts up into the rafters, leaving the floor cold and damp. The last bowl is scraped clean. Rats come out to sniff at crumbs. The servants slump on benches, too tired to move, too cold to dream. You curl under your cloak, belly half full, body aching, smoke in your lungs. This is survival, and it's only day 2. Rembly drotwid. Preetshammen to Beetledosen, Roundabout, with the Machtdemnesenswar, Rentlige Prostrage Cameo, Sucking Town and all do. Castles looked like luxury, but inside they were iceboxes filled with stale bread, sour ale, greasy broth, and endless smoke. You wouldn't feast here. You'd gnaw and shiver, chew and cough, pray and gag, and by spring, if you lasted, you'd never complain about burnt toast again. Your first defense against the cold: clothes. You think clothes will save you. Layer after layer, wool on linen, cloak over tunic, hood over cap. You think if you just pile enough fabric on your body you'll be fine. But in a medieval castle, even clothing was a battle you never truly won. Survival POV, dressing in layers. It's dawn, and you fumble with your tunic, fingers stiff with cold. The wool scrapes against your skin, itchy and unwashed. You pull hose up your legs, tie them clumsily, then wrap a cloak around your shoulders. You keep your hat on, even in bed. Still you shiver. The air cuts through every seam. The fabric is heavy, damp from yesterday's sweat, and crawling with lice. Your cloak smells of smoke, wet wool, and old sweat. It has not been washed this season. Washing would mean stripping down in icy water, and that would kill you faster than the cold. So the stink stays. So do the bugs. Fleas and lice, the unwanted warmth. The cold doesn't scare fleas and lice. They thrive in the seams of your clothing, snug against your body. You scratch constantly, fingernails blackened with dirt. You pluck a louse from your sleeve seam, crush it, and another appears the next day. You're not alone in your misery. Lords itch, ladies itch, peasants itch more. Everyone scratches, even in church, even at the table. The bugs don't care that you're shivering. They live off your blood while you freeze, the fireplaces and smoke. You shuffle to the hall again, cloak pulled tight. The fireplace is lit, but it belches more smoke than heat. You cough, your eyes sting, your wool cloak soaks up the smell. The warmth doesn't reach you unless you stand almost inside the fire itself, and then you choke instead. Some servants wrap their cloaks over their heads like tents, trapping a little body heat. Others crowd too close, singeing hems, but desperate enough not to care. Survival POV, trying to work. You sit down with quill and parchment to scratch a note, but your fingers are numb, stiff like sticks. Ink freezes in the pot. The quill cracks as you push too hard. You try to eat. Spoon clumsy, bread slipping. Your lips are cracked, bleeding. Every motion hurts. Now imagine trying to cook, serve or guard in this. You wouldn't last a day. The noble's edge. It wasn't all equal. Nobles had fur-lined cloaks, imported fabrics, even heated stones carried in by servants to warm their beds. But even they shivered. Even kings wore layers indoors. Even queens slept under heaps of blankets. Dogs pressed against their legs. Luxury didn't erase the stone. Everyone froze, just at different levels of misery. Peasants and servants, for peasants who worked in the castle or outside in the bailey, clothes were thinner, coarser, and often patched. Holes let in drafts. Cloaks grew stiff with frost. They stomped their feet to feel their toes. They blew on hands until lips split. They rubbed arms raw, trying to bring warmth to skin that never felt it. And they still had to work, carry logs, fetch water, sweep halls, cook food. Every breath was a chore. The smell of people in winter. Clothing and bodies became one in winter. You rarely took off your layers, which meant you wore your sweat, grease and smoke all season. The hall reeked of wool, piss, sweat, smoke and cabbage. Your cloak smelled of it. Your bedding smelled of it. Even your breath carried it. To you it's revolting. To them it was life. Sardonic reflection. Your winter coat. You pull out your winter coat once a year, grumble about its bulk, and wear it to the coffee shop. You think you're suffering. Here, you'd be wearing every coat you own, indoors. You'd stink, itch, and still freeze. Your Patagonia jacket wouldn't save you. Not in a castle that leaks like a sieve. Symbolic misery. The layers don't matter. You sit in the great hall, 3 layers deep, cloak overhead, hat on tight. You look like a bundle of wool with legs. You still shiver. A noble woman passes by, furs dragging, face pale. She's shivering too. The cold doesn't care how many layers you wear. It seeps through stone, cloth and flesh alike. Survival POV, the long day in clothes. By midday, your sweat soaks into your tunic. The damp turns cold. By evening, your cloak is stiff. You scratch until your skin bleeds. Your nose drips onto your sleeve. You wrap your hands in cloth, still numb. You crawl back into bed with all your layers still on, still cold, still itchy, still coughing smoke. This is your life in a medieval castle. You're not stylish. You're not warm. You're surviving, barely. Clothes as coffins. Your clothes don't feel like protection. They feel like a coffin of wool and stink. The cold still wins. It slides through seams, cracks, stone and bone. You wouldn't survive a week in these layers. You'd itch, you'd stink, you'd cough yourself to sleep, and you'd wake colder than before. This isn't warmth. This is surrender. From misery to danger. Up until now, the cold in a medieval castle has been an inconvenience. You've shivered, you've coughed, you've cursed your frozen bread. But winter here wasn't just uncomfortable, it was lethal. The stone wasn't just cold, it carried sickness. The drafts weren't just unpleasant, they spread fevers. And when the ground froze solid, even the dead had to wait for spring. Waking to illness. You wake in the morning and your chest feels heavy. The damp air has crept into your lungs. You cough, deep and wet, spitting into straw. The sound echoes off stone. Your body aches from cold nights on straw. Your joints throb. Your fingers are red, cracked and bleeding. You drag yourself to the fire, but there is no warmth. The castle is not just a freezer. It is a breeding ground for sickness. And sickness doesn't spare anyone. Pneumonia and the ague. In the Middle Ages, there was no germ theory. People didn't know bacteria or viruses caused disease. They blamed bad air or curses. But they knew this. Winter killed. Pneumonia came first. The lung fever, turning coughs bloody and fatal. The ague, fever and chills, probably malaria or influenza, swept through households. Weak lungs, damp stone, smoky air. It was a recipe for death. You cough once, then again. By the third day, you're coughing blood. No doctor will save you. No herb will cure you. Frostbite and chilblains. Step outside to fetch water and your fingers burn, then go numb. Your toes swell purple and raw. This is frostbite. Poor peasants wrapped rags around their feet, praying for warmth. Guards on the walls stamped their boots until their toenails blackened and fell off. Chilblains cracked skin until it festered with infection. Hands swelled until they couldn't work. And in a world where every pair of hands mattered, the cold didn't just hurt. It destroyed livelihoods. Survival POV. The corpse in the corner. You sit in the smoky hall and glance toward the corner. A figure lies under a rough blanket. You realize they haven't moved in hours. The cold has claimed another. No priest will come yet. The ground is frozen. The body will wait until thaw. The hall will continue. People step around it, coughing, chewing their crusts. Life goes on. Death waits in the corner like furniture. Frozen graves. The cemetery outside is stiff with frost. The ground is iron. Picks and shovels bounce off it. Families stack bodies in crypts, barns, even corners of churches waiting for thaw. By spring, the smell is unbearable. You walk past the churchyard and see lumps under snow. You don't need to ask what they are. Children and the elderly. The cold picked favourites. It killed the weakest first. Ronza, babies born in December, had little chance of surviving until spring. Elderly men and women, already thin and frail, froze in their sleep. Mothers wasted away as their milk dried, leaving infants too weak to cry. For a peasant family, winter meant counting how many mouths would not see spring. Sardonic reflection. Modern winter complaints. You complain when your car won't start in winter. In a castle you might not start either. Your lungs seize, your fingers rot, your body collapses. You complain when sidewalks aren't salted. Here there is no salt, only salted pork, and it won't save you. You wouldn't survive a week of this. Not with your scarf and boots. Not with your vitamin supplements. Not in a hall where death coughs in every corner. Religion and cold death. Priests told the freezing masses that suffering was holy. Cold was a test of faith. Hunger was penance. But even the priests shivered in their cloaks. Even the churches filled with smoke and coughs. You kneel to pray, fingers blue, lips numb, knees on icy stone. Salvation feels far away. The only thing near is your breath fogging in front of you. Survival POV. Night fever. You lie in bed again, wrapped in damp blankets. Your chest rattles with every breath. You cough into straw. No one moves to help. Everyone is coughing too. The candle sputters. The draft whistles. The night drags on. And you wonder if you'll wake to another morning of cold. The numbers we forget. Historians know winters were killers. Whole villages lost a third of their people to fever, hunger, or cold. Castles may have looked invincible, but inside they were no safer than the fields. Cold didn't care if you were lord or peasant. Everyone shivered, everyone coughed, everyone risked the grave. Closing reflection. The cold wins. Castles were built to stop arrows and armies. They could not stop winter. The walls didn't protect you. They betrayed you. The drafts carried fevers. The smoke choked your lungs. The frost split your skin. You would not survive this winter. Not in this castle. Not in this stone coffin where the cold is king. Stone palaces, stone prisons. From the outside, a medieval castle looks invincible. High walls, towers piercing the sky, banners snapping in the wind. To us, they look like symbols of wealth and power, of knights in shining armor and kings feasting in warmth. But inside those walls were stone refrigerators. Every hall, every corridor, every stairwell was built for defense, not comfort. They were built to keep arrows out, not cold. They trapped people inside, not warmth. The fortress that protected life also made life unbearable. Survival POV. Walking the castle one last time. You shuffle through the corridors again, boots stiff with frost. Your cloak sags with dampness. Your fingers ache. You pass servants huddled under rags, knights sneezing into helmets, children gnawing stale bread, dogs curled under benches for warmth. Everyone is shivering. Everyone is coughing. You pass the Lord's chamber. Even there, where fur blankets pile high and the hearth is stacked with logs, he sits hunched, pale, his breath clouding the air. There are no winners here, only survivors. A place of splendor, a place of death. Yes, castles had banquets, pageantry, roaring fires, but winter stripped away the splendor. Banners stiffened with frost. Music drowned under coughing. Feasts smelled of smoke and sweat more than roasted meat. Fires smoked out halls faster than they warmed them. Stone echoed with groans, not laughter. The same architecture that made castles majestic made them tombs of cold. The cold didn't care about rank. In summer, rank mattered. Nobles dined, peasants served. In winter, everyone froze. The lord's fur cloak reeked of smoke like a servant's rags. The noblewoman's hands cracked and bled like the dairymaid's. The child of the hall and the child of the village both coughed through the night. The cold didn't care about gold. It only cared about bodies. Survival POV. Imagining your fate. You crawl into your straw bed one last time. Your breath hangs in the air. Your nose drips. The lice still bite. The frost creeps along the stones above your head. You know spring will come, but will you live to see it? You feel your chest tighten, your cough deepen, your limbs ache with weariness. The cold is no longer just around you, it's inside you. You close your eyes, and it feels like surrender. The lessons in the stone. When you visit castles today, they are ruins. Tourists climb spiral stairs, take photos of arrow slits, marvel at thick walls. They rarely ask what was it like to live here in January. The answer is simple. It was misery. Fires failed to warm, clothes failed to protect, food failed to nourish, and the walls so strong against armies betrayed their own people to the cold. Sardonic reflection. Your cozy winter, you complain when your Wi-Fi drops during a snowstorm. Here you'd pray just to keep your fingers. You grumble about overpriced heating bills. Here you'd pay with your life just for warmth. Your hot chocolate, your fuzzy socks, your thermostat at 72 FF. They are luxuries beyond the dreams of medieval lords. You wouldn't survive a single January in this castle, not with all your modern bravado. You'd last 3 days, maybe 4. Then the cold would own you. Closing reflection. Castles as tombs of cold. Medieval castles stand as monuments of strength, but in winter, they were prisons of suffering. For peasants, for servants, for lords and ladies, the story was the same. Nights of shivering, days of coughing, months of hunger and despair. To live in a medieval castle was to fight an endless war against the cold, and more often than not, the cold won. So the next time you stand before a castle ruin, don't picture knights and feasts. Picture frozen fingers, coughing servants, stiff bread, and stone walls that guarded nothing but misery. That's what it was like to freeze in a medieval castle. And you wouldn't survive.